The steam wrapped around us like a secret we weren't ready to share. Thick and unforgiving, blurring the line between sweat and tears. Connor's breath hit my ear hot, ragged, carrying words that sliced through the haze. I killed him, Evan. And if you stay, it'll destroy you too. My heart slammed against my ribs. The wooden bench beneath me suddenly feeling like the edge of a cliff. And in that instant, every assumption I'd built about this man, this stranger who'd become my everything, crumbled into ash. I jerked back, the slap of my bare foot against the slick tiles echoing like a gunshot in the empty sauna. His eyes, those piercing blue ones that had hooked me from day one, locked onto mine, pleading and terrified all at once. "What the hell does that mean?" I whispered, my voice cracking like cheap glass. Because part of me already knew this wasn't hyperbole. This was the fracture line in the fairy tale we'd been pretending to live. It started innocently enough, the way these things do in a city like New York, where everyone's hustling so hard they forget to look up from their screens until something or someone forces them to. I was 28, fresh off a promotion at the ad agency in Midtown that paid just enough to keep my one-bedroom in Brooklyn afloat without drowning me in ramen noodles. Life was a grind, client calls at dawn, happy hours that blurred into regrets, and weekends spent scrolling Grindr for connections that evaporated by morning. I come out in college, a messy sophomore year fling with a lacrosse player that ended in whispers and slammed doors. But since then, I kept my heart on lockdown. Safer that way. No drama, no fallout. Just me, my overpriced coffee, and the hum of the subway. The gym was my escape. A no-frills spot in Williamsburg called Iron Haven. Think exposed brick, thumping EDM, and guys who looked like they bench-pressed their existential dread. I've been going for months, pounding the treadmill to outrun the loneliness that crept in after the office lights dimmed. That's where I first saw Connor. Not in the weights room, where he could have been just another bro flexing for the mirrors, but in the sauna after a brutal HIIT class. I pushed open the door one Tuesday evening in late spring, the air hitting me like a wet towel to the face. And there he was, sprawled on the upper bench, towel slung low on his hips, head tipped back against the cedar wall. Water droplets traced paths down his chest, catching the dim amber light like they were plotting something intimate. He didn't look up at first, but when he did, it was like the steam parted just for us. Dark hair matted to his forehead, a jawline that could have been sculpted for a cologne ad, and eyes, God, those eyes, stormy blue, holding a weariness that mirrored my own. "Room for one more?" I muttered, feeling exposed in a way that had nothing to do with the heat. He nodded, a half-smile tugging at his lips. "Plenty. Name's Connor. You look like you need this more than I do. We talked, or rather, he drew me out like a confession. Turns out he was a freelance photographer, the kind who chased stories in dive bars and rooftop parties, capturing the raw pulse of the city from magazines that paid in exposure and ramen. 31. Originally from Philly but transplanted here 5 years ago after some family bullshit, as he put it with a shrug that didn't reach his eyes. Divorced? No. Kids? Hell no. Gay? Proudly. If you let me be. His laugh was low, rumbling through the steam, and by the time the timer buzzed, I'd spilled more about my dead-end exes and agency nightmares than I'd shared with my therapist. We exchanged numbers on the way out, steam still clinging to our skin like a promise. Coffee tomorrow? Non-gym edition, he texted that night. And just like that, the hook was set. Our first real date was at a hole-in-the-wall cafe in the East Village, the kind with mismatched chairs and baristas who quoted Kerouac. Connor showed up in a faded band tee and jeans that hugged him in all the right places, carrying a beat-up Leica slung over his shoulder like an old friend. He ordered black coffee, no frills, and listened as I rambled about my latest pitch, a campaign for organic dog food that had me questioning my life choices. Sounds like you're selling souls. Hanson, he teased, but there was no bite, just that grin that made my stomach flip. Evan Hansen, that's me. The guy whose name sounds like a Midwestern insurance salesman, but who grew up in a sleepy suburb outside Chicago, trading cornfields for concrete jungles. By dessert, shared slice of key lime pie. Because why not? His knee was brushing mine under the table, and when he leaned in to wipe a crumb from my lip, the world narrowed to the warmth of his thumb. We kissed outside, under the flicker of a street lamp, his hands framing my face like I was one of his photos, precious, framed just right. It was electric, tentative at first, then hungry, the city noise fading to a distant roar. From there, it snowballed. Weekends blurred into stolen mornings, him dragging me to abandoned warehouses in Bushwick for inspiration shoots, me cooking half-assed pasta in my tiny kitchen while he edited rolls of film on my couch. Connor had this way of seeing me, not the polished agency drone, but the kid who'd once dreamed of writing novels instead of taglines. "You're more than the bullshit they feed you," he'd say, fingers tracing lazy circles on my back as we lay tangled in sheets that smelled like him, cedar and salt. He opened up too, in fragments, a strict Catholic upbringing that left scars, a brother he'd lost to opioids back in Philly, the gnawing fear that he'd never outrun his own shadows. But always, there was that wall, a flicker in his eyes when the conversation veered too close to his past, a deflection with a joke or a kiss. I fell hard, the kind of fall that makes you stupid and brave all at once. For the first time, I let myself believe in something real. No games, no ghosts, just us, carving out a space in the chaos of New York. We even met friends, mine at a rooftop barbecue in July, his at a dimly lit gallery opening where he introduced me as the guy who's got me rethinking my solitary wolf phase. Laughter, clinking glasses, his arm around my waist like it belonged there. It felt like home. But cracks form in the best foundations. It started small, a late-night call he'd take in the bathroom, voice hushed and urgent. "Family stuff," he'd say after, sliding back into bed with apologies and distractions. Then the cancel plans, shoots that ran long, deadlines from hell. I brushed it off, we were adults, right? Lives didn't pause for love. Still, doubt whispered in the quiet hours, that old Chicago-bred caution rearing its head. Was I just a rebound? The convenient city fling? The sauna became our ritual, a weekly reset after the grind. Iron Havens was tucked in the back, a sanctuary of heat and silence where words weren't always necessary. We'd strip down, towels barely qualifying as cover, and let the steam dissolve the week's armor. That's where it happened. That night in early September when the air outside had turned crisp, but inside, it was still summer sweltering. I'd had a brutal day, client meltdown over a botched storyboard, and Connor had been scarce all week. Tech sparse as rain in a drought. He was already there when I entered. Posture slumped, face buried in his hands. "Rough one?" I asked, settling beside him, our thighs brushing in that casual intimacy we'd earned. He nodded, not meeting my eyes. The silence stretched, heavy as the humidity, until he finally spoke, voice barely above the hiss of the rocks. "Evan, there's something I need to tell you. But promise me, don't run." Not yet. My pulse quickened, a mix of curiosity and dread. "I'm here, aren't I?" He took a breath, deep and shaky, and leaned in close, his lips brushing my ear as if the walls had ears. "I killed him, Evan. And if you stay, it'll destroy you too." The words hung there, toxic and impossible. I pulled away, searching his face for the punchline, the metaphor. But there was none, just raw, unfiltered terror. Connor. What? Not here. He cut me off, glancing at the door like it might burst open. My place. Now, we dressed in silence. The locker room mirrors reflecting two strangers. The cab ride to his walk-up in Greenpoint was torture, his hand limp in mine, the city lights streaking by like accusations. Up the narrow stairs, into his loft cluttered with prints and half-empty takeout boxes. He poured a scotch neat, burning down my throat like truth serum. He paced, words tumbling out in fits. It was back in Philly, 3 years ago. My ex, Mark. We were toxic. Evan. Fists and apologies. The whole cycle. One night, he came at me with a bottle, screaming about how I'd ruined him, how I was the reason he couldn't leave. I pushed him. Hard. He slipped, hit his head on the coffee table. By the time the ambulance came, he was gone. Cops called it an accident, self-defense. No charges. But I know what I did. I ended it. The room spun, scotch souring in my gut. Jesus. Connor. Why didn't you tell you sooner? He laughed, bitter and broken. Because who wants to love a monster? I came to New York to start over. Bury it. But it follows me. Nightmares. Whispers from old friends. And now you. God. Evan. You're the first good thing. But if this gets out, if it touches you, I wanted to bolt, to unhear it all. But his eyes, pleading, held me. This man, who'd made me laugh over burnt toast and held me through panic attacks, wasn't a killer. He was broken. Yes, flawed in ways that mirrored my own hidden fractures. We're in this together, I said finally, voice steadier than I felt. No running. He crossed the room in 2 strides, pulling me into an embrace that tasted of desperation and relief. We didn't make love that night, just held on, 2 souls adrift in the dark, whispering promises we hoped we could keep. Little did I know, his secret was just the first fracture. The real storm was brewing, one that would test every vow we'd made in that steam-filled haze. The weeks after that confession were a tightrope walk, euphoric highs crashing into vertigo lows. Connor threw himself into us with a fervor that bordered on obsession, like he was trying to outrun his ghosts by building a fortress around what we'd found. Morning started with his lips on my neck, coffee brewing in the background as he murmured plans for the day, a picnic in Prospect Park, a drive upstate to chase fall foliage. Let's make memories that stick, he'd say, and I'd nod, ignoring the knot in my chest that whispered warnings. But secrets have a way of festering, and Connor's wasn't the only one casting shadows. Work at the agency ramped up, a big pitch for a national soda brand that had me pulling all-nighters, fueled by Red Bull and resentment. My boss, a slick 40-something named Derek with a comb-over and a wandering eye, started leaning in too close during reviews. His feedback sessions, laced with compliments that slithered like invitations. You're killing it. Evan. We should celebrate. Drinks. My place. I'd deflect with laughs and deadlines. But it gnawed at me, a reminder of why I'd armored up in the first place. Vulnerability wasn't a luxury. It was a liability. Connor noticed. Of course. He had a photographer's eye for the unspoken. One night, after I'd snapped at him over nothing, spilled takeout on his rug, he cornered me in the kitchen, hands gentle on my shoulders. Talk to me. Babe, you're carrying something heavy. The dam broke then. Words spilling about Derek. The pressure. The fear of being seen as that guy again, the one who'd gotten his heart shattered and his reputation whispered about in dorm halls. Connor listened, fury flashing in his eyes. But he didn't interrupt. When I finished, he pulled me close, his voice a low rumble. "You're not alone in this. We'll handle it together." That together became our mantra. He started joining me for lunches at the agency cafe, his presence a subtle shield, casual chats with Derek that left the man fidgeting and redirecting. And me? I dove deeper into Connor's world, shadowing his shoots in the meatpacking district, where models posed against graffiti walls like urban myths. He taught me to see the city through his lens, the weary grace of a street vendor at dusk, the defiant spark in a drag queen's wink. In return, I shared my own fragments, the letters I'd written to my estranged dad back in Illinois, the novel outline buried in my laptop drawer. We were weaving a tapestry, threads of trust pulling tighter with each shared breath. But trust is fragile, and New York has a knack for testing it. The first real crack came in mid-October, at a gallery show Connor was exhibiting in. His series, Fractured Light, was raw, intimate, shadows of lovers in half-light, echoes of loss in empty frames. It was his soul on the walls, veiled but unmistakable. I stood beside him as patrons murmured approvals, his hand warm in mine, when a voice cut through the crowd like a shard of glass. "Connor Riley? Holy shit. Man, it's been forever." The man who approached was broad-shouldered, early 30s, with a beard trimmed sharp and eyes that drank Connor in like a lifeline. "Evan, this is Jake," Connor said, his smile tight as piano wire. "Old friend from Philly." Jake's handshake was firm, lingering, his gaze flicking to me with a curiosity that bordered on pity. "Heard you landed on your feet here." Mark would have been proud. The name hit like a sucker punch. Connor's ex, the ghost from the sauna. I froze, scotch glass halfway to my lips, as Jake clapped Connor's shoulder and launched into reminiscences, late nights at some dive bar, wild times that danced too close to the edge. Connor laughed it off, but I saw the strain, the way his fingers dug into my side. Later, in a cab home, I waited for the explanation that didn't come. "Just an old acquaintance," he muttered when I pressed, turning to the window. The silence stretched, accusatory, until I snapped. "The guy mentions your dead ex like it's small talk. And that's all I get? Connor, I'm drowning in half-truths here." He turned then, eyes blazing. "What do you want me to say? That every ghost from Philly comes with baggage? Jake was Mark's best friend. He blames me. Evan thinks I got away clean." The cab lurched to a stop outside his building, and he stormed out, leaving me to pay the fare and chase after. Upstairs, the fight erupted, words like grenades, my accusations of hiding, his defenses laced with pain. "You think this is easy? Dragging you into my mess?" he shouted, voice echoing off the exposed beams. I fired back. "I chose this, but you have to let me in all the way." We collapsed onto the couch, exhausted, his head in my lap as apologies flowed. "I'm scared," he admitted, voice muffled against my thigh. "Losing you, that's the real killer." I stroked his hair, the fight leaching out like poison, replaced by a fierce protectiveness. We made up slowly, kisses turning to touches that mapped forgiveness on skin. But Jake's shadow lingered, a reminder that the past wasn't buried. It was exhumed, piece by jagged piece. November brought Thanksgiving, and with it, the pressure of families. Mine was a no-go. Dad's silence, since my coming out a decade ago, was louder than any turkey carving. Connor's? A minefield. Mom's in Philly, still pretending I'm the golden boy, he said over wine one night. Can't face her without spilling everything. So he opted for a chosen family feast. Me, him, a ragtag crew from the gym and his photo circle crammed into my Brooklyn apartment. Laughter rang out over stuffing and stories. Jake mercifully absent, and for a few hours, It felt unbreakable. Us against the world. Plates passed with inside jokes. Then came a call. Late that night, as we cleaned up, Connor's phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at the screen, face draining of color. "It's nothing," he said too quickly, silencing it. But I saw the name, Jake. The unease from the gallery bloomed into something sharper, and by morning, it had taken root. Texts went unanswered during his next shoot. When he finally surfaced, excuses piled up like autumn leaves. Client emergency. Battery died. I nodded, but the seed of doubt sprouted, irrational, insidious. Was he pulling away, reaching back to old comforts? The breaking point hit on a rainy Saturday, 2 weeks before Christmas. I'd surprised him at his loft with takeout from our favorite Thai spot, only to find the door ajar, voices murmuring inside. Peering through the crack, my stomach plummeted. Connor and Jake, inches apart on the couch. Jake's hand on his knee, Connor's head bowed. No kiss, no betrayal in the flesh, but the intimacy, the shared sorrow. It gutted me. I backed away, rain soaking through my jacket, the city a blur of neon and regret. That night, alone in my apartment, I paced like a caged animal. Call him, demand answers, or walk away clean? Before his fractures became mine, the whiskey burned, memories flashing, his whisper in the sauna, our first kiss under the street lamp, the way he'd held me like I was salvation. By dawn, resolve hardened. I wouldn't run, not without fighting for the truth. I showed up at Iron Haven that evening. The gym's fluorescent was a stark contrast to the storm in my chest. He was there, post-workout, glow dimmed by exhaustion. And when our eyes met across the weights, relief and guilt warred on his face. "Evan, wait," but I didn't. I followed him to the sauna, the door clicking shut like a verdict. Steam rose, thick as unspoken fears, and I faced him, voice steady despite the quake inside. "What's going on with Jake? And don't lie this time." He sank onto the bench, towel slipping, vulnerability laid bare. "He's not what you think." After Mark, he spiraled, blamed me, then needed me like a crutch. Last night, he showed up drunk, talking suicide. I let him crash. That's all. Swear it. His eyes searched mine, pleading. "But you're right, I'm poison. Maybe I should have warned you all from the start." The air thickened, my throat tight with a cocktail of relief and rage. "You don't get to decide that for me." I stepped closer, the heat mirroring the fire in my veins. "We're messy. Yeah. Haunted. Even. But I love you. Connor." Ghosts and all, the words hung, raw and real, and he surged up, pulling me into a kiss that tasted of salt and second chances, fierce, forgiving, a dam breaking. In that moment, wrapped in steam and each other, I thought we'd turned the corner. But love, I've learned, isn't a straight shot. It's a labyrinth, full of dead ends and revelations that blindside you when you least expect. December in New York is a salt of contradictions, twinkling lights against gray skies. Holiday cheer laced with the chill of isolation. For us, it was a fragile piece, stitched together with tinsel and tentative trust. Connor and I dove into the season like kids dodging reality, ice skating at Bryant Park, where he'd spin me until we collapsed in giggles, decorating his loft with a tree so lopsided it leaned like it was drunk. Midnight runs to the all-night diner for pie and confessions under the guise of festive vulnerability. He opened up more, stories of Christmases past. Mark's ghost fading into context rather than specter. Jake, a boundary was drawn, texts blocked, doors locked to the past. Work, though, was my unraveling. The soda pitch landed, A coup that should have been champagne-worthy, but Derek twisted it into leverage. Big leagues now. Hanson, he leered during the rap party, cornering me by the bar with a hand on my elbow. Let's discuss your future privately. Booze-fueled bravado made me shrug him off, but the seed of unease took root, blooming into paranoia. Late nights at the office, I'd catch him lingering, eyes tracing lines that made my skin crawl. I confided in Connor over eggnog one night, his jaw clenching like a vice. File a complaint. Or I will for you. I hesitated. Agency politics were a viper pit. Rocking the boat could sink my career. It's just talk, I downplayed, but the lie tasted bitter. Deep down, I knew it was more the power imbalance, the casual cruelty of men who saw a no as a negotiation. It mirrored Connor's scars, those bruises from Mark that went beyond skin. And in sharing that parallel, we bonded deeper. We're survivors, he'd say, toasting with mismatched mugs. That's our superpower. Christmas Eve sealed it. We opted for quiet, his place, a fire crackling in the portable hearth. Take out lobster rolls because tradition be damned. He gifted me a leather-bound journal. For that novel you're too scared to write, inscribed inside. Mine to him, a custom lens filter, etched with our initials intertwined. We made love by candlelight, slow, reverent, body speaking what words couldn't. Afterward, tangled in blankets, he traced my collarbone and whispered, "Marry me. Not now, but someday, when we're ready to outrun the dark." My heart swelled. Yes, 1,000 times, but fear tempered it. Someday, I echoed, sealing it with a kiss. That night, as snow dusted the city, I believed in forever. New Year's brought the pivot, sharp as a dropped champagne flute. Connor's phone rang at midnight, shattering the countdown cheers from the TV. He stepped into the bedroom, voice low, but walls are thin. "Jake." "No, stop. That's not." Minutes later, he emerged, face ashen. "He's in the ER. Overdose. Cops want my statement." Said he left a note naming me. The world tilted. We cabbed to Mount Sinai, the ride a blur of what-ifs. Jake lay pale in the ICU, tubes snaking like accusations. A detective waiting with notepad and narrowed eyes. "Mr. Riley, we need to talk about your history with the patient, and that incident with Mark 3 years back." Connor's hand trembled in mine as he recounted it all. The push, the accident, the acquittal, voice steady but eyes haunted. Jake pulled through, stabilized. But the note? A ramble of grief and grudge. Connor took everything from me. Now it's my turn, back home at dawn. The weight crushed us. "This is what I meant," Connor said, collapsing onto the bed. "The past, it poisons everything." I held him as sobs racked his frame, my own tears silent. Rage simmered, not at him, but the unfairness, the way one fracture rippled into tsunamis. By morning, resolve formed, therapy, together. We found a counselor in Chelsea, a no-nonsense queer vet named Dr. Leon, who dissected our traumas with surgical empathy. Sessions became sacraments, unpacking Mark's abuse, my dad's rejection, Jake's enabling turned vengeful. But healing isn't linear. Early January, the agency gossip mill churned, rumors of my favoritism in the pitch win, whispers linking it to Derek's mentorship. A colleague pulled me aside one lunch. "Watch your back. Evan. He's got a type and a temper." Paranoia peaked. I documented everything. Emails time-stamped like lifelines. Connor urged action. HR. Now, but fear paralyzed me. The what-ifs of retaliation. Blackballed in a town where connections were currency. The storm broke mid-month, on a Friday that started ordinary and ended in apocalypse. Connor had a shoot in the village. I wrapped early, heading to meet him at a cafe. En route, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Ask your boyfriend about the photos he didn't delete. Attached, grainy images, time-stamped from Philly PD files. Connor and Mark. Mid-fight, shattered glass. Bruises blooming. But worse, a close-up of Connor's hand raised. Not in defense, but anger. Forged? Leaked? My blood ran cold. I confronted him at the cafe, slamming my phone down amid clattering saucers. What the hell is this? His face crumpled. Recognition dawning. Evan. It's not. Don't, I hissed. Voice venom. You've been lying. All of it, the accident. Jake. Was I just your redemption project? Diner stared. He grabbed my arm, pleading. Let me explain. Please. We fled to his loft. The argument exploding like fireworks gone wrong. He swore the photos were manipulated, old evidence twisted by Jake's bitterness, leaked to the press after the ER stunt. He's unraveling. Evan. Targeting us to absolve himself. Proof? A frantic call to his lawyer from Philly, confirming the originals showed self-defense. No malice. But doubt festered, fed by exhaustion. How do I know? I shouted. Every time I trust. It bites me. He recoiled like I'd struck him, eyes glistening. Because I love you. More than the lies. The fear, everything. The room fell silent. Charged. Until I walked out, door slamming like finality. The subway ride home was hell, regret warring with betrayal. The city a mocking carousel. Alone in Brooklyn, I scrolled the photos obsessively, sleep evading like a thief. Days blurred into a standoff, texts unanswered, calls to voicemail. Dr. Leong mediated a session, but it was raw, accusations flying, defenses cracking. You're punishing him for my ghosts, I admitted through tears. And Connor nodded. Broken. And you're right to question. I should have burned those bridges cleaner. Reconciliation came haltingly. Over cheap wine and takeout in neutral territory. A park bench in Central Park. Snow dusting our coats. I can't lose you, he said. Voice raw. But if you need space. I took his hand. The cold biting, but his warmth anchoring. No more secrets. Full transparency. He agreed, sealing it with a kiss that tasted of hope and hurt. February thawed us slowly, date nights reclaimed. Therapy, a weekly anchor. But the Real bomb dropped on Valentine's Day. Not with roses, but a knock at Connor's door. I answered, expecting delivery. Instead, a woman in her 50s, steel-haired and steely-eyed. I'm Ellen Riley, Connor's mother. And you must be the boy he's been hiding me from. The air sucked out. Connor appeared, frozen in the hallway, color draining. Mom? What? She breezed past, clutching a manila envelope like a weapon. Your father's dying. Connor. Liver failure. And this. She slapped the envelope down, printouts of the leaked photos. Tabloid headlines screaming photographer's deadly past exposed. The whole city's buzzing. Jake's family tipped off the press. You think you can run forever? Chaos erupted, Connor's denials. Her accusations, years of silence. His selfish choices dragging the family name through mud. I stood witness, heart pounding, as old wounds reopened. She turned to me, then, eyes appraising. And you, do you know what you tied yourself to? He defended me fiercely. Evan's the best thing that's happened to me, but she wasn't swayed. Come home. Face this. Or lose us for good. She left in a whirlwind. Ultimatum hanging. That night, Connor shattered, sobs that echoed his brother's loss. the weight of abandonment crushing him. I held him, whispering, "We'll go. Together." But inside, terror brewed, his family, my career teetering on Derek's whims. The past wasn't content to haunt. It was invading, demanding tribute. As winter gripped tighter, I wondered if love could withstand the siege, or if we'd crumble under the weight of what we'd unearthed. March arrived like a reluctant thaw, muddled skies mirroring the mire we'd waded into. Connor's decision came swift. Born of desperation, we'd drive to Philly, face the Riley clan head-on. "No more running," he declared, packing a duffel with the finality of a soldier. I called out sick from the agency, first time in years, citing family emergency, the irony bitter on my tongue. Derek's email response oozed false concern. "Take care. Evan. We need you back sharp." Subtext screamed possession. I forwarded it to HR anonymously. A quiet rebellion. The drive down I-95 was a pressure cooker. Connor white-knuckled the wheel of his battered Subaru, radio silenced by the ghosts between us. We talked in circles, his mom's icy judgment, the press vultures circling old wounds. "She never knew about Mark," he confessed, voice thick. "Thought I was the perfect son, until I wasn't." I squeezed his thigh, anchoring. "You're enough. Always were." Philly loomed, row houses and cheesesteaks a stark contrast to our Manhattan bubble. The Riley home was a brick colonial in Chestnut Hill, manicured lawn hiding the fractures within. Ellen met us at the door, apron stained from hospital vigils. Her hug for Connor stiff as starched linen. "He's upstairs," she said, eyes sliding over me like an afterthought. "Evan, was it? Kitchen's that way. Make yourself useful." Dismissed. But I swallowed it, pouring coffee with hands that shook. Connor's dad, Tom, was a shadow in the master bedroom, jaundiced skin stretched over bones, oxygen hissing like accusations. "Son," he rasped when Connor knelt beside the bed, grasping a frail hand. "Heard the news. That boy. Mark. Why didn't you say?" Connor's voice broke. "Didn't want to burden you." Tom's gaze sharpened, landing on me in the doorway. "And him? Part of this mess." I stepped forward, chin lifted. "No, sir. Part of the fixing." The days blurred into a vigil. Hospital runs to Jefferson, where nurses bustled with clipped efficiency. Tense dinners where Ellen dissected Connor's choices over pot roast, her Bible quotes landing like indictments. "Love the sinner, hate the sin," she'd say, and I'd bite my tongue bloody, channeling Dr. Liang's advice, boundaries, not battles. Connor shielded me, deflecting barbs, but the toll showed, dark circles, snap patience. One night, after she'd cornered him about reparative therapy, he exploded. "I'm gay, Mom, and happy for the first time." "Can't you see that?" She recoiled, tears weaponized. "Your father's dying, and you bring this scandal." I pulled him away, into the guest room we claimed, where he paced like a caged wolf. "I can't do this, Evan. They're suffocating me." We clung then, bodies a bulwark against the storm, whispers of escape mingling with moans of need. Not lust, but lifeline, reaffirming us amid the ruin. Tom passed the weekend, quietly in the night, monitors flatlining like a sigh. The funeral was a Catholic affair, incense and incantations, black-clad mourners murmuring condolences that felt like judgments. Jake appeared at the graveside, hollow-eyed and sober, his nod to Connor laced with unspoken sorries. No words exchanged, but the air crackled, absolution or armistice. Later, at the repast, Ellen pulled Connor aside, voice low. "Your father left a letter. Read it alone." He did, In the study, emerging pale but resolute. He knew about everything. Said he was proud. Wished he'd said it sooner. The drive back to New York was cathartic. Windows down to let the wind scour clean. "I'm free," Connor said, handing mine over the console. Finally, we stopped at a diner off the turnpike. Burgers and shakes tasting like victory, toasting to ghosts laid to rest. But homecomings aren't clean. My inbox awaited like a guillotine, HR summons. Derek's fingerprints all over it. Inappropriate conduct allegations, the email read. But the attached file? My forwarded complaints. Twisted into frivolous accusations by a subordinate claiming harassment from me. Gaslighting, pure and vicious. Panic surged. Connor found me hyperventilating over cold pizza. "Fight it," he urged, dialing a lawyer friend from his freelance circuit. "You're not doing this alone." The investigation dragged. Interviews in sterile conference rooms, where Derek's charm curdled into condescension. Colleagues flip-flopped. Some backed me. Others hedged, fearing fallout. Sleepless nights bled into days. Connor's shoots postponed as he became my shadow. Coffee runs. Pep talks laced with dark humor. "If we survive this, think of the story," he'd quip, but his eyes betrayed the fear of losing me to the machine that chewed up dreamers. The climax hit in late April, under a sky bruised with thunder. Agency boardroom, air-conditioned chill raising goose flesh. Derek sat smug across the table, flanked by suits. I had Connor in the lobby. A talisman. Testimony pile, my docs. Witness statements. Even an old HR file on Derek's patterns. When the hammer fell, termination from Mr. Hargrove. Pending lawsuit, his face twisted. Not defeat, but venom. "You'll regret this." Hanson. City small. I walked out trembling, into Connor's arms. Rain starting to spit. "It's over," I gasped, and he kissed my forehead. Fierce. "No, it's beginning." Spring unfurled, tentative and green. I landed freelance gigs, copy for indie brands. Time to dust off that novel. Connor's exhibits sold out. Fractured light, reborn as mended shadows. Our story woven subtle in the frames. Jake reached out once. A letter of amends. Therapy. Sobriety. A plea for forgiveness. Connor wrote back. Closure. Not absolution. By summer, we'd moved in together, his loft. Expanded with my books and chaos. No grand gestures. Just quiet affirmations. Morning runs. Shared saunas where whispers were now of dreams. Not dreads. The betrayal? It scarred, but didn't define. Misunderstandings forged empathy. Secrets birthed honesty. We weren't perfect. Arguments flared over dishes and deadlines, but in the lulls, love bloomed humanistic, resilient. One evening in June, steam curling around us in that familiar haze. Connor leaned in, lips brushing my ear. "I love you, Evan." No ghosts, just us. I smiled, heart full. Forever's a good start, in the end. It wasn't the drama that defined us, but the choosing, day after day, to stay, to heal, to love, messy and true, in a city that never sleeps, but sometimes, mercifully, dreams.